Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tia Kansara, the Executive Director of Replenish Earth. Our core value is ecosystem restoration. And today I'm really happy to have the wonderful Christiaan Maats join us. In 2008, he created OAT Shoes, the world's first 100% biodegradable shoes that bloom. And after 7 years of pioneering the field of sustainable footwear, he now helps entrepreneurs and businesses accelerate sustainable innovation. He's a Dutch product designer, entrepreneur, educator. He's currently sustainability director at DFNS, a care products company, works closely with open innovation agency, Noorderwind, and circular business kickstarter, CIRCO. He's a teacher, a business coach, and at the Global School for Entrepreneurship teaches product design, as well as at the Technical University in Delft. Christiaan, welcome to the live.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for your attempts to pronounce all these weird Dutch words.
You got to start somewhere, and then watch for. It's kind of like the improv style, right? Like you do something, and then there is a response.
Yeah, totally. You did a great job.
So. One of the inspirational things that I saw last year was a photograph of a shoe with the plant coming out of it. How did that even begin?
Yeah.
How did that start? I mean, the concept, of course, like marketing a shoe with a tree coming out of it is kind of fun, but this is such a beautiful and I think long journey that has meandered, and I'd love to be able to share it and for people to hear it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it started with me studying industrial design engineering, so at the Technical University where I now teach as well, and finding out that I'm not a very technical person, so I wasn't very much pulled towards the mechanical and the engineering side of this study. I was more fascinated by the psychological side of product design. So what effect do products have on us, and how do products mediate between us and our environment? And I started doing research on it, and basically developed sort of this theory of storytelling through product design. So how can you embed layers of meaning into a product so that it becomes more than just something that functions in a certain way and looks nice, but actually carries more layers of value, you could say. And so for graduation, I said to my professors, well, I want to do something with this idea of storytelling. Can I do this? And they said, yes, but you're still an engineering student, so you have to do something technical as well. So I found a project that revolved around an innovation for shoe design. I really love sneakers. So I thought this sounds like a great plan. So I developed this sort of technical shoe that was supposed to be able to open and shut automatically for people that can't reach their feet very well. And I started doing researching on the storytelling side, researching macro trends, things to connect to the sort of the larger social environment, global environment, but also just the Western European context. And sustainability was already a big part of that. I thought it was a logical thing to implement into a starting business. Like if you're starting a new business 10 years ago, especially, but now especially even more, how could you not put sustainability at the center of it? So I thought, okay, this needs to be a part of it. And so I started researching sustainability and recycling, and got into the cradle-to-cradle philosophy, so the bio cycle and the techno cycle and all this sort of jargon I got familiar with. And I also found some footwear initiatives, like Nike's Considered line that was already, I think, launched in 2005 already, so a couple of years earlier. And what I found with the shoes that existed, that I really didn't like the aesthetic very much. It seems like they were really catering to a very specific niche of the market. And also they were recyclable shoes. So I buy my shoes, I would imagine I'm buying my shoes, I'm using them for a year or two or however long, and then I have to remember to send them back to the factory. So I have to find a box, or because there wasn't any infrastructure, etc. So I have to think about how to get this shoe back to the factory, and then I have to take their word for it that they're going to do something good with it. And I thought, no, that's way too much hassle. I am a lazy consumer. I want to be able to throw out my shoes, but I want to be able to feel good about throwing out my shoes. So why not make them biodegradable? Why can't I grow them or throw them on the compost heap? And then I started thinking about these layers of meaning and this storytelling aspect. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be much nicer if you can make the wearer part of the natural cycle of life, actually making you part of nature, so in that respect, so that you can plant your shoes and then flowers grow out of your old sneakers. So that's what I finished graduation with. And then I took another couple of months to think, am I really going to do this? Because this sounds like a weird idea. Also, I remember being on I enlisted in a business plan competition because I needed to have some sort of deadline system to get me going. And I remember the first sort of drinks that you have after the first meeting. There was drinks there, and you know, people were chatting. They're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, I'm trying to make trucks more more streamlined, so they use less fuel." "Oh, and yeah, I'm have this innovation in aviation." "And what do you do?" "Well, I'm making biodegradable shoes that grow flowers. I hope."
What I love is that, you know, you had an image.
I did. I had an image.
And the image was beautiful. I mean, the fact that you could have a flower out of a shoe, or a shoe that flowers, was sort of the curiosity that led you, the interest that led you, the excitement that led you, because, you know, there was much more than just the shoe. It was the entire process around that, right? And I feel that, you know, as a product designer, you're almost you're exempling that journey from not thinking about the ecosystem necessarily in your design, in your business, in your forethought, to really having it central, and having it so central that everything around that, even the vision, is about getting there. So it's starting with that and ending with that. So it's like end to end.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just, I guess it's just like you said, it's an exploration. It's a following of your fascination, and then taking that to me at least, its logical end. And even I think part of the reason why I really wanted to also start the company was because it snowballed into a vision for what a company should be then. You know, why I didn't want to be this global operating, dominating company, because to me that would be counter to what the philosophy would be about as well. It would be much more of a company that would just create really nice inspirational products that connect you to your environment and to the people around you. And maybe, if anything, maybe it would have been split up in hubs, you know, where different people might do something with the philosophy, or maybe it wouldn't just need to grow at all, and we just made small runs of products just because that's what makes it the most fun for everybody that's working on it. So I was trying to look for ways to be to give a really nice, inspiring example, to make it fun for people. But also the pitfall there, of course, is that when you're then so ambitious and you see all the ways in which this could be a success, is that you can then stumble and things might not go the way you planned.
And that's it, right? You know, you don't know where it's going to go, but you know that you need to get there somehow. So it's less about the sort of a definitive. It's more about, you know, when we talk about the journey of, or the journey to, you know, a lot of that is actually included in the journey to eco-alignment, or for us, it's
sorry,
not at all. You know, for us, it's a journey to replenishing the earth, right? That's the you know, the ultimate, and I think that ultimatum is presenting itself slowly but surely in, you know, the fields that we're working in. And slowly we're seeing this philosophy of living in harmony with nature pop up everybody. Everyone's talking about it. It's fantastic, you know. It is. And it's that sort of, I'm curious, do you feel, for example, you know, with the experiences that you've had so far, that we will experience an earth that is replenished in our lives. Like, is this something that is possible? And I feel that as a person that has showcased an example of a product and a service of footwear, that this is happening. You know, is this, are we there at the precipice of, you know, that sort of like we've reached the peak of capitalism, and now it's about the next peak, which could be replenishing Earth? And if so, how?
Yeah,
you're gonna get there.
I think we are at a critical age. I think this is an age of transformation. So as you said, I totally agree. The capitalist system has run its course, but in critical periods like this, you can see a parallel actually maybe in personal development. When a person is under stress, they can either self-reflect and evolve and become the better for it and the happier for it, or they can regress into the fears that have limited them throughout their life or their childhood or whatever. So it really depends on I think humankind's capacity to start this process of self-reflection and evolution and reorganization. It is very much a huge systems change, but I also think it's very much a psychological challenge. And I think that's a part of what I learned actually by creating this product, and also actually failing to make it a successful business, was an enormous personal growth process. And so I see that parallel in society, where if we don't evolve, if we don't learn to face our own fears and our own shadows, then we will start electing more and more autocrats, more and more, people like in some countries we have seen and are being elected. Whereas in other countries, you also see a drive for more progressive, more sort of a more forward-thinking political choices. But this is still very much a slow-going process, and I think most of it is done sort of under the cover, I guess you could say. Like you don't see it as much, I think, in public life yet, because, well, maybe that's my opinion, but to me, usually the political layer is the lagging group of people in sort of a societal motion. They're usually the more conservative. So the leadership comes from science, comes from the young generation, comes from businesses that see it as maybe even a pragmatic choice to have to evolve towards this new paradigm. And obviously people like yourself, people that run platforms to educate, to inspire, to promote a different way of relating to ourselves and our environment. So do I think it's possible? Yes, I very much think it's possible. I think
yes. Yes, let's do this. What would you say is the Christiaan Maats formula to become a replenisher?
Yeah, to me, maybe that's counterintuitive, but to me, it's always been about being curious about life, but being very self-reflective, doing the work for yourself. So trying to understand when you are feeling emotions like judgment or desire or jealousy or irritation or love, to try to explore what is at the root of both positive and negative. But it usually starts with the negative, because those are the feelings that we try to push away. Those are the feelings that we try to avoid when we come home at night and we throw on, Netflix, or we go drinking, or we dive into sports routine that physically just exhausts us, so we can't think. All these things that we do not to be confronted with our own shadows, that's exactly where the treasure lies, even in myth. So I think doing that work, each person for themselves, trying to understand what truly makes you happy and stop being afraid of what lies in the shadows for yourself, that it feels like a mortal danger. And psychologists once explained to me why it feels like a mortal danger is because oftentimes it's rooted in your childhood. Trauma is a big word, but small trauma is still trauma. In your childhood, where you are dependent of your parents' love for food, for your existence, for your life. So you are trained to adjust your behavior towards what your parents need from you. And that's not anybody's fault. That's not, your parents love you and they try to do the best that they can. But as a kid, your survival mode is, how do I behave in a way that I can be assured of their love and nourishment? And later in life, as you grow into the adult that you are and you form your own sort of convictions and the way you might want to live your life, those two can start having some friction. And that's where that fear comes from, because you're pushing it away, because that fear is potentially in your sort of your memory a mortal fear. So doing that work and seeing that fear actually as a sign of exploration and something that might give you a lot more by uncovering what's behind it, that's where that growth part is. So
that's seriously juicy. That is seriously juicy. That is, the self-work and the discipline to do so is so challenging. At Replenish Earth, we've got the 12 steps to becoming a replenisher, and it's a self-diagnostic tool that you could look on the journey, and there's no judgment, whether you're at the beginning, middle, or end. It doesn't really matter. It's this is where I think I am. I think this is what the questions are that I'm asking. And, how do I then meet the people, community, or what are the next steps? I think there is that self-directed curiosity, which you're talking about.
Yeah, totally. And it is about, of course, it doesn't start for everybody with, who am I and what are my fears? No, it starts with some fascination that you have, right? Everybody has a different makeup. Everybody has different fascinations. But the key is to follow that fascination and whatever challenge you come up against, whether that's external or internal, how do you face that? How do you grow from that? How do you use that as a stepping stone to grow as a person and to become a more happy, but also more sort of the purposeful being, I guess.
What do you think are the sort of the tactics that you've learned to make those sustainable choices, and how can other product designers also, find their way?
On the practical side, there's a lot of knowledge about how to create circular products. So there's at the CIRCO platform that I work with, we teach businesses to create a sustainable business case. So businesses come to us, they have they might want, maybe they're a beer factory and they want create circular bottles, and then we take them through this 3-day process where at the end they will have a business case to try to do that.
Amazing.
And part of the theory there is sort of the circular pyramid. It was developed by the Circle Economy platform. I actually have a slide of it if you want to.
Oh yeah, please.
Shall I show it on the share screen?
Yeah, you'll be able to share it directly.
Okay, let me see if that. All right. Well, this is another. This one. Can you see this?
Let me make that bigger. Oh wow.
So this is the sort of the value pyramid of product design, where you on the left side you add value, right? In each step you delve the raw materials in the factory, parts are made, and then those parts make a complete product. And then at the top is the user cycle. That's the little person at the top of the pyramid there. And then when we throw it out, we basically just throw it down that whole pyramid. When it's much more logical, as you see, there's on the right side, there's a little circle at the top where this user keeps using it, or just kind of resells it to another person if it's still good to use. And then the next step down is to refurbish it, to make it into a next new product, and then of course recycling parts, and then recycling raw materials. So what you want to do as a product designer is somehow make your product stay at the top of that pyramid for as long as possible. And that's by making it, durable, by making it repairable, by making the parts easily repairable and interchangeable. So often, people talk about our product is recyclable. Well, that's really a really small part of what it means to be sustainable. So part one is understanding the sort of the practical strategies that there are to make circular products. And then to me, there is another side that's about what I call the ritual. It's basically user interactions. But for me, a ritual creates a bit more value and a bit more depth. So rituals connect you to a larger truth or a larger environment, or just to other people, or to your pet even. Like I was talking to a friend of mine, and she gave a really nice example. She said, "Yeah, those automatic pet feeders that you have now for your cat, you can just sort of times it times when to feed your cat or whatever." And she said it's horrible, because that basically disconnects you from your connection with your cat. Like maybe he's not eating, and you only find out 2 days later because you're not minding, how the food is going. So
you walk past the kitchen and there's this big pile,
big pile of food. Where's Charlie?
Deploying the cat feed, but the cat's not really interested at all in the food unless it becomes from you.
Exactly. And she actually gave another really good example that I love. She's also a product designer, so she was activated when I was talking to her about this. Thermostats, smart thermostats. So smart thermostat, in theory, right, is a perfect product because it helps you reduce your heating or your cooling, depending on what climate you're on. You have an app on your telephone, and it knows when you're there, and it completely automates your heating system, which works in most countries. But apparently it doesn't work in Holland, because in Holland we're used to dialing down the thermostat when we leave the house and dialing it back up when we enter the house. So you can't get more synchronized than I'm at home, up, I'm going to bed, down, I'm waking up, and I'm leaving the house, down. And apparently that's so ingrained in most of Holland's that's like a really good little ritual, or a habit that people have just accustomed themselves to. So apparently smart thermostats in Holland don't work as well as most other countries, because we just have it programmed in our mind that we just up, down, up, down. So when we leave the house, keys, wallet, down. So those little habits and rituals, those are things that you can provoke, or you can by creating a product in a certain way and allowing for a certain interaction, you can stimulate people to behave in a certain way, and you can have them connect to their environment more.
It's almost like a cultural thing as well, though, right? You're incorporating that sort of cultural aspect into your design decisions. You're recognizing that it's contextual. There's a context here.
Definitely. I mean, the Dutch are known for their frugality, let's say, so it might have something to do with that.
I love what you write about the power of ritual. How is ritual, drastically changing a person's routine when you're introducing it as a new concept or a new ritual? Because for me, rituals take time, and they are almost like a practice, right? You don't just dial the thermostat up and down one day and don't do it another day. There's an incremental relationship with ritual.
Yeah, that's very true. And it is very much about being able to cultivate a mindset, or wanting to live in a certain way, where you inch by inch, you start to shape your life in that way. So it's never one day to the next, and I'm a changed person, hallelujah. No, it doesn't work like that. Also, if you expect that, you start judging yourself again, and you start, getting like, it's not working, screw it, I'm not going to do it anymore.
And the guilt and the shame.
And the guilt and the shame.
Die miserable death.
I wanted to exercise and it didn't, and now I'm crap, and I'm gonna eat this tub of Ben & Jerry's.
To feel good about the fact that I feel ashamed and guilty.
Exactly. Yeah, that's this weird. So that's escapism for you, right? It's like this weird. I'm gonna go for a sugar rush because then I can compensate. Feeling.
At least that is going to give me a high, if nothing else isn't.
Exactly. So, and then it is about also giving yourself space to do that, and just observing yourself sitting there with the tub of Ben & Jerry's and being like, okay, I'm doing this right now, and I'm gonna freaking enjoy it as well. Tomorrow's a new day.
From flowering shoes to Ben & Jerry's. I love it.
How do we get there? But it is about it. Well, it's about, I guess, knowing what gives your day a nice little color. So for me, in the morning, I have this ritual, obviously, where I make my breakfast, and I have, like, for some reason, I have 5 different sort of glass jars with all kinds of granola in there. I'm not really sure how I got here, but it's because it seems like a lot of work. But now I somehow just like brewing.
Wait, is it homemade, or
Not even. No, I just collect.
Because that would be on another level,
Yeah, no. A friend of mine.
Just seeing where the
that's going too far. My friend keeps harassing me for saying, like, Chris, you can just do it in the oven, the granola. It's really easy. I'm like, there's limits to what a person can do.
I will go with my granola.
I mean, yeah, she bakes her own bread, and it's that's the whole another level. I think she has more time than I do. There's that aspect as well. But anyway, going back to that ritual. So I like just having a little bit of space to wake up, doing my little meditation routine and all that, and then having tea, and I have this really nice Japanese tea caddy that's handmade, and that just my sort of OCD side is really happy with how it closes and opens, etc. And that's just my little, I have my little tea and my little, so those sorts of routines are what make your day. So if you start cutting that down because you have a busy day, because you have a deadline, because otherwise your boss will be angry, or you won't be, etc., 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 then you start cutting into your happiness. So you have to somehow be aware of, wait, what makes my morning worthwhile? What makes my day worthwhile? I enjoy being able to, like, I send when my jeans are worn, I send them to the mender, and I get them fixed. I don't throw them out because I like my jeans. They're worn in. They're good, and I kind of like the way that you can mend them. And actually, the Japanese obviously are the kings of tea ritual, but also repair rituals. The Swashika denim. Oh, actually, I can share my screen again. I think I can show you some examples.
So I lived in Japan for a couple of years, and I am, so incredibly enamored with Japanese culture. I just feel that there is so much. This is beautiful. Wow. Yeah,
just learning how to do this. And again, this is like, it's not that I'm learning how to do Swashika right now, but these types of things, there's so much potential for creativity in mending clothes, shoes, in mending things and putting creativity into it.
It's like, kintsugi for jeans.
Yeah, totally that. Yeah. But also just caring for your products, like just having sneakers, especially sneakerheads. Like, I have a couple of sneakers, I'm really happy with them. I know when to make them last as long as I can. So I take really good care of them. And that just becomes then a little ritual. If you're enabled to do that with the right products, and with the sustainable. And then this was another one of our products with OAT, was little baby shoes with tree seeds to plant your baby's tree of life. So when out of the baby's first baby shoes, you can plant a tree, and then the tree and the baby grow up at the same time, which I thought was really cool way of connecting
so
know,
yummy. I mean, you
a
know,
kid with,
yeah.
I would have loved to have a tree that was the same age as I was, you know, and just have a sense of proportion also in terms of how fast does a tree grow, et cetera, et cetera.
Definitely.
And then actually a couple of examples of students of mine. So I teach a course at the Technical University in Delft that's called Zen and the Art of Design. And it's basically about designing rituals. And the starting point is not what problem are you solving? It's where is there quality lost in a certain ritual? So if we're talking about tea, you know, boiling some water and throwing a tea bag into it, there is a lost quality in the sense that you don't interact with the tea anymore. You don't scoop something out of a nice little tea caddy, as I told you about. And so they take an interaction or a situation of their choosing, and they try to look for the quality loss, and they try to design a ritual for it. So I thought this was really interesting from Falco, a student I had last year. And he said, you know, gaming, I always liked gaming, but now it seems like gaming is only happening online. And so you're shut off in your little dark bedroom with your headset. You're talking to people you don't know, and you're just kind of completely shut off from the world around you. And what I really loved back in the day was the old school games, but also being able to do board games with people and just having a fun time with your family. So he created this really cool blend of like a classic Pong-like game with a hardware interaction on it. So you can use those little colored pawns to create barriers or to have a function in the game. And it's smart paper, so it's not like this glowing, you know, screen, but it's a paper-like material. And then you have these little classic controllers, and you can still play together and have fun together, but still also play sort of a computer game. So I thought this was a really nice way of, how do we connect people again with something that he does really like to do, is to play computer games. And something like light, something that's super, most people don't even think about, right? Just turning a light switch on and off is super simple for us. But what if you re-examine that ritual? What if you said, well, light is also something precious and something that takes energy, obviously. So what if everybody in a household had their own little lantern, and they could turn on and off the smart bulbs in their house by just touching it with the lantern, and then the light transfers from the light bulb to the lantern, and you can collect it in a little kettle to create a sort of a little fireside glow where you can sit together, and so the light has sort of a social function there as well. So it creates a completely different view of what the role that light plays in our household. And it was actually inspired by the idea of the potato eaters of Van Gogh, where they're all huddled under this little lantern, you know. When back in the day in a house you had one light and everybody huddled around it, because that's where the life was as well. So those were some of the examples that I had from.
You know what this reminds me of, and it's interesting that we brought in the Japanese function or the ritual, and similar to you, have many things in my life, like my Japanese grandma, who I'm not Japanese ethnically speaking, but spiritually speaking I am. And I never realized that you could inherit an ancestor, you know, until I came across someone who passed on, and I just had this incredibly strong connection with her. So I actually wrote something which was a bit curious the other day. I'm going to read it out. At death, I become the earth. My soul becomes consciousness. A contrast to the stories I've heard before this, a consistence with the feelings and materialization of merging with and without form. I merge my matter to the formed elements of stars and the dynamic, timeless body that I was birthed from. I merge my consciousness with the unearthed divine knowing of all existence. Beyond space and time, I explore realms that yet are to become, birthing and becoming. And I think, you know, one of the things that you were talking about was about this ritual. And the Japanese have this beautiful concept, and you'll see that across so many different disciplines that they have, like Kado, Sado, Kyudo, Judo, like all of the doors, right? And the door is the Japanese kanji is about the way, the path of. So it's almost as if what was emerging was the ritual is the way.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. I've by teaching that course also and getting into the whole idea of storytelling, I guess that's how I arrived at ritual, because the rituals show you, like you said, the rituals become the way. Through the ritual, you channel your experience, maybe, and you channel your connection to what's around you, and it creates a space to. I guess it creates a space to reflect, but also just appreciate and to be in that moment, which is obviously very, I mean, the Japanese Zen tradition is very much about just in anything that you do, just do that. And
but do it well, and do it, do it with focus, and do it with clarity, and do it with creativity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do it with care. This kind of reminds me of the photographs that you were showing before, which was the creativity is like, hey, look, here is a kit that you can jazz up your jeans with. Go play. There's something so unique in creating, and it almost makes it. I have a bowl that that at one of the schools that I was teaching at, one of the art teachers taught me pottery, like Japanese pottery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's bust up around the sides, and the edges are sort of crumpled over however many years it's been, but I will never throw it away.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get some Kinski going on it or something, but I will never throw it away, because for me it represents something. And I think for me, ritual is that representation in forming.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that's true. That's how it gets this value. It's how this gets this meaning for you.
Right.
Yeah, I think I've grown up with that very much, actually, now that you mention it, because I've the connection I have to my own grandmother, who was born in Indonesia. And she traveled the world a lot, and to me, she was always a window into the wider world. She came home with wood cuttings and masks from across the globe, and I was just fascinated by them. And she and my parents always instilled in us an appreciation of lasting presence also.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of made fun of it at a certain point, because we would ask each other, like, what do you want for your birthday or something, and then my grandmother would always say, what would you like for your birthday? It has to be a lasting present. And so it was a bit of a joke, like, oh, grandma wants a lasting present, but really the only things that matter, that really retain their value, are the things that I got with a lasting value, because either you use them for a long time and they last and you appreciate them, and they have the history of being given by somebody that you love and appreciate, and this whole world that is attached to that. Yeah. So, and a lot of that has to do with the ritual as well. I think actually that tea caddy that I was mentioning from Japan, it's supposed to get old. It's supposed to get dirty. And I find myself resisting the urge to clean it, because they've told me, no, you have to use it and make it. So it's, I don't know, there's this weird psychological thing going on as well, where I want to clean and be like, no, it's supposed to become old. It's made to become old, and that's how it also builds this extra value, by showing the signs of life.
The beauty of aging, right? The beauty. Yeah. It brought me back to something that you mentioned earlier, which is, for me, we all have, like, mental health. How does one look after theirs? Everyone has it. And there was this thing that you said about, if it's worthwhile, I want to do it. This is something that has meaning to me. Coming back to your granola, this is a ritual in the morning that you want to partake in, because that ritual gives you a sense of worthwhileness. I mean, I wanted to say worthiness, but worthiness isn't the right word. It's not about whether you're worth it. It's what that means to you. So it's much more of the relationship of that to you than necessarily the other way around. Of course, there are sometimes inanimate objects. So there's something about this mental health piece. And I feel right now, of course, we have very big questions around ritual at home. How do we understand that all of the products that we have in our homes are part of somewhat rituals within rituals within rituals? I feel like an Inception movie right now. And we have identified ourselves with these. So when you talk about the lasting, right? For me, that's the birthing and becoming, right? There's never really a death of anything. My body becomes the earth.
Yeah.
My consciousness becomes the consciousness of the planet. And I feel that on a very scientific, practical, it's a fact, my body decomposes and I become, effectively the dust of the planet. So deep in that lasting, right, the ritual of lasting, is there a sort of an eternal ritual?
My first thought would be the ritual of the cycle, as you said, the being and becoming. So the I guess the weird thing that most philosophies teach is be in the moment. So be, but that process of being able to be in the moment is continually becoming, is continually going through this cycle. And one of the most impressive books I read when I was studying, actually when I was doing that storytelling research, was by Joseph Campbell, called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And to me, that just, because I was always looking for sort of, I guess, universal patterns to try to understand, like, what is this all about, or where are we, and how does this work? And for me, that was a really big one, because he basically identifies the cycle of myth, right? The cycle of the hero's journey, as he calls it, where there's always a moment where you have to leave home, you have to leave the threshold of the known world, and you go on this journey, and you are faced with challenges, but you also receive help, usually from an older helper, but sometimes from magical helpers, etc. And then there's this moment of ultimate testing the character, and then there's the flight home. Either you're chased by the dragon or whatever, or you're brought home by magical means, etc. And then you return home a changed person. And I realized that this is, you could explain the design cycle in the same way. If you want to design something, you have to research the problem first, because you're stepping into the unknown. So you have to understand where am I, what am I doing, why, what are the parameters. Then you start creating ideas, and you're faced with challenges because things can't be made, or the supply chain is always difficult because you have to meet with partners who don't want to do things, etc. And then there's the ultimate moment of character, where you need to push through and get the product actually made, and then you understand how you've made it, and now you're back home in a sort of known environment with this new knowledge. But the same goes for learning a math problem. If you don't know how to count as a kid, you have to step into this unknown realm, and somebody older than you teaches you how to add or how to subtract, etc. And then at a certain point, you know how it works, and then you come back home into the known world. So this learning cycle, this cycle of myth, this is how people make sense of the world. This is how we grow as human beings. And I feel like everybody, whether they want to or not, go through these circles of becoming. And it's up to you maybe to decide where the circle is going, and maybe even whether you want to chase it upwards or downwards, or go in circles forever, and just kind of do the same thing. I mean, if you're fine with it, that's fine. That's fine too. But so that, I guess your question, the only thing that comes to mind for me, I guess the universal ritual, if you could say, is some sort of cycle.
That's fascinating and really deep. And I can go and paint on this and draw on this and write some poetry and get really creative and step into that space, because that, you know, as you beautifully put, you know, being in the cycle is constantly becoming.
Yeah.
Being present in that cycle, being ready and aware and awake and conscious.
Fearless.
Fearless.
And
not because we are putting fear and ignoring fear, but becoming one with fear.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fearlessness sometimes makes it seem as if we're so confident that we are not aware of that fear. It's almost as if we just want to ignore it and, you know, dispose of it. But it's actually fear that becomes your friend. It becomes that lifelong companion that always directs and helps on the journey. It's like you know, I remember when I was about 25 years old, I wrote a list of, I don't know, maybe about 30 things or something that I was really afraid of, like really scared of. But these are, you know, top fears of my life right now. Wrote them down on a list and said, right, what is the practice or the ritual? What is the item that helps me overcome that fear? And it was interesting because the fear never really went away. The fear was always there, but through the fear became that there was a door that learning was on the opposite side of. Yeah. So when I decided to open the door and walk through the fear, that's when I became the learning.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I realized now that you say this, fearlessness isn't the right term. It's really courage, really. I mean, as you said, fear is a signal more than anything, and is something to be curious about, because it's a door to learning. I think you put that really nicely. Yeah. So you need that courage.
Exactly, and you know, coming back to flowering shoes, you know, that the courage to, you know, not only hold that image, but also to walk that path, whatever that path, the door, right, Japanese way of, the way of the ritual may be, and holding that ritual and its essence, of where it leads you and the meaning that it gives to you, is almost like the sort of, you know, the magic, the fairy dust.
Yeah. Follow your bliss.
Follow your bliss, right? Kind of almost it's almost like this stillness, isn't it? It's like the silent, or the Debussy's quote, in between the notes.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Case in point.
Exactly.
I was thinking about, we were talking about granola also. No, you said really something really nice, and I wanted to add on, because you said first you said worthiness, and then you said worthwhileness, and I thought yes to both in a certain way, because as soon as you let something else, some external imposition on you, take you away from what to you is worthwhile, then you're putting yourself sort of lower, secondary in worth. So who knew L'Oreal was so right in saying, because you're worth it, you do want to do a certain ritual or some routine or whatever it is you want to do, because it really gives that extra space in your day to be silent, maybe, or to reflect, or to just start up your day in a way that you can go through it within a certain amount of ease. That is also a question of, do you think that you're worth that time? And really making the choice consciously to say, you know what, yes, I deserve this space right here, right now, and not in an egocentric way, but more. It helps me become a better person throughout the day. So I'm worth it, but that also, because that also creates a knock-on effect in the day ahead. In my situation as a morning ritual, but in the evening or wherever you are as well, take a walk in the middle of the day. Step out of the office, take a walk in the woods. Like, a lot of people won't do that because they only have half an hour of lunch break or whatever. Well, if a company only gives you half an hour of lunch break, then you have to question their motives, I think. Or
but
no maternity leave.
Having a conversation on a walk. Unless if you're in front of a camera and you're live and you're recording something, or you need to use your computer to showcase something on like a PowerPoint presentation or whatever. But otherwise, walk and talk, movement, fresh air, new sights, new thoughts, thinking on the spot, in situ, having all of these beautiful influences on our lives can be incredibly helpful. Having the epigenetic quality of adjusting our lives according to a new environment, a new way of being, a new thought, right? That's a neurogenesis at its best. Adding new things and rolling with it. And that's it. There's almost like this, the passive going around and around in circles, because that's just your day, right? You do the same thing every day. And it's interesting because there is that the shadow self of the ritual, which is doing something perpetually exactly the same, not wanting to change it. And another aspect of the ritual and the cycle and the product or use, whatever, which is adding to, one that is sort of getting you in this echo chamber. Everything is exactly the same, inputs are exactly the same, but continued over time. And the other is an evolution of that, almost like a spiral, not even a circle.
It is about a spiral, and it reminds me of, on a very much material level, that we talk about the circular economy because it's a circle of materials, but really it would be a spiral, and over time you hope that a material or a product goes through as many usage spirals and continues to move forward, because it always evolves to a certain extent. And why that's relevant, I think, also is because a lot of focus in the circular world is on the techno cycle, so recycling plastics eternally. But most material scientists will tell you, well, that's impossible, because if you recycle a plastic, it will always, get little, it'll always deteriorate. So you always end up with a brick of that you have to store somewhere, that you have to do something with. But that's, I just had a tangent on the material level there. I guess that's why it's such a universal symbol. It's you come back to it, and this idea of evolution in ritual, I think, is really interesting, because it takes a conscious approach to the ritual, not just going through the motions day in, day out, as you said, but having a conscious approach to it.
Empowering it, right? And we talk about power of ritual, but it's almost as if you're empowering the ritual to empower yourself. And it's this, this play between the notes of ritual, or the points through which that ritual journeys. Yeah,
totally. It's beautiful.
Cool. Yeah. So cool, Christiaan. So cool to have a chat with you, and
that was really fun.
so grateful to go into the flowering shoe and ritual and product design and circular design, and even knowing that I can get a gift of a child's shoe that could become the tree that they then, like you said, could have a tree that sort of almost grows with them, like a part of an element of nature that is, joining them on the journey of life. So that's all we've got time for. I'm so excited to have shared this time with you, and to also share with our viewers the link directly to Christiaan's write-up in the Replenish newsletter, which you can subscribe to as well. We've also shared the details of our YouTube, so please do subscribe. I'm going to share, that this is a continuous journey. This sort of begins, right? And then there's the becoming. So Christiaan, I'd love to share how people can get in contact with you on the screen, and also any thoughts, any final ideas that you'd like to share, any questions that you'd like to leave the audience with.
Questions for the audience maybe is one question is always good. What did you love doing as a child? Or what fascinates you? What's your fascination, regardless of functionality or purpose or some goal that you want to attain? Where's your fascination? Start there.
Well, thank you all very much, and see you soon.